GM, KEP Posse. This is Kianga Ellis. This is Kianga Ellis Projects 25. And it's a little bit cold. So I'm going from extremes up here, as I talked about on Tuesday. So today is Thursday, February 27th, 2025. And let me get comfortable, let me get comfy. When I get to talking in these meetings, I get very warm. So I'm sure I won't be as cold as I am right now. But I've just been running around this morning and afternoon. It's very snowy. It's beautiful outside in Downeast Maine. And I think we're supposed to turn to rain later, but for now it's quite pretty. Not that we haven't had our fair share of pretty winter snow this year. We really have. My first year as a full-time Mainer, and my first time really, getting into the way of life here in the winter. And I think I'm holding up pretty well. So today I'm here. I didn't go to Augusta as I kind of had on my schedule for two reasons. I'm going to go on Saturday. I'm going to go on Saturday, and it's a big drive for me. Oh, and also the weather. So, the weather is not a great day, and hopefully Saturday will be all right. I think it's warm enough. It'll be raining. But Saturday, I have to show up for Maine Girls and for Laurel Libby and for the just obscenities occurring in the state. I'll leave it there. So I'm here today. So we have our regular meeting, and since we didn't really do it last time, go through the slides. That is what we're going to spend most of this meeting doing. The notes, the talking points, and when my hands warm up, I will just, live type with you all and document things that have been swirling around in my mind about the project, about Rural Rapid Response Network, about Kianga Ellis Projects 25, which stands for, so Kianga Ellis Projects is a thing that's been a part of my life since 2011. There's a long history that I'm sure I'll reveal over time, bits and pieces. But primarily, Kianga Ellis Projects was Kianga Ellis in the art world, and Kianga Ellis doing out-of-the-box things with artists who were, it wasn't strictly about artists being online, but it was at a time when Web 2 was new and novel, and there's definitely always been an interest on my part in futurism and technology and what was happening with the internet and online spaces and niche communities. And that was a time where I was in New York at the time, New York City, and it was a pretty interesting and wonderful moment for this intersection of the visual arts community that was really happening very much so in Bushwick and on the Lower East Side, Bushwick, Brooklyn, and on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, primarily. Some very cool things in Chelsea. We're talking a while ago. So this Kianga Ellis Projects started as an art thing when I was taking a sabbatical from my other preoccupation, which has been the law, and I had been on Wall Street. I had been at Lehman Brothers in 2008, and so that makes sense, right? I got spit out of Lehman Brothers when it collapsed, and I said, I think I just want to hang out on the internet with art people and follow artists with my phone who are doing weird performances, and then just post that on on YouTube. And so that's what I did for many years. And that channel is still on YouTube with a lot of the things that I was doing back in, gosh, the whole history of Kianga Ellis doing out of the box things that have nothing to do with the law, but everything to do with art, culture, and technology and the future. So it feels really good to be expanding what Kianga Ellis Projects is, to have really taken the leap in the last few days to say that Kianga Ellis Projects needs to be crypto native, and that we're not going to be ashamed anymore. We're not going to hide. We're not going to hide crypto over here in the corner, like bring it out later when it's more palatable. Why? Because it is just the thing. It is my hope for how are we going to get out of this mess. It is my proposal. My proposal, I mean, this is where my law practice has been. It's where I've been focused for the past, 8-9 years. This was always going to be my proposal for solutions. My law practice, Mud Lake Legal, is completely focused on this decentralized finance, regulation, compliance, and strategy for projects, the future of all things finance and capital markets, basically. And, if you've been watching any of these videos or coming to the meetings, we started in January, and it really, it came much more so out of me getting engaged politically, starting with last summer, and how that's progressed. And then now all roads are converging, which is wonderful. The art me, the crypto me, the political me, the lawyer me is now all happening together and pointing in the same direction. And that feels good. That feels good. So what I want to do then is, I'm looking around because I have all of my things on my desk. My my Jimmy Carter bobblehead doll to just keep things light when they get a little heavy. Yes. So what I was doing before I came here for this meeting, I was out waiting for the internet man to come and fix the internet at the Kianga Ellis Project House here in Maine. So there was a thing going on with Kianga Ellis Projects having to do with project houses that up until recently was really all going to be focused on the visual arts, contemporary art, and community. And I've realized that it doesn't only have to be that the work we're interested in for the Rural Rapid Response Network, this community activism, the citizen adjacent action, it also needs a home. It needs a home in meet space. It needs a home offline. It needs a home embedded within the places where we live and where we are wanting to make a difference, wanting to be value add, wanting to help each other as a good neighbor, as a good Samaritan, as we talked about a couple weeks ago. And so where I see this going is something that Kianga Ellis Projects can contribute to the Rural Rapid Response Network, are actually, a place at our project houses in Downeast, Maine, Deer Isle specifically, where I am right now, where I was this morning to get the internet fixed, and another location which is in central New York, in the northern Catskill Mountains, where my law practice is based. So more about that a little bit later, but at some point over the next few weeks, probably closer to this beginning of the spring, sometime maybe March, April. Anyway, the studio, our broadcast studio will move. I'll sort of set up in the actual in the project house here on Deer Isle, and that will be a place that, I think we can use this summer and beyond for the activities of the Rural Rapid Response Network, kind of overlapping a little bit with some of the art stuff that I have planned. And that, contemporary art, current art is really a language, a vocabulary that I need right now. I need to make sense of the world. And I believe we all can benefit from, if you're an artist, naturally, obviously you're making your work and it's very important, but also as a way for us to have more nuanced, deeper conversations with one another than is probably possible, when we're online, separated by the screen. Us being together in space is crucial. Us knowing our neighbors, and but then having art is a great way to come together and dialogue about something strange. And the strangeness of it is where it takes you out of your mode. It takes you away from your knee-jerk reactions or your assumptions about things. It really opens up a space for discovery, and discovery without, I don't know, I won't say without judgment, but I hope, and it's certainly been my experience, that talking about art, looking at art, communicating, learning through that lens, through that vocabulary, it just opens up a lot of possibilities for understanding both oneself and the world around us. So I will keep that in the draft of the ELI5. We'll get to it in a moment, of anchoring the Rural Rapid Response Network in art spaces. And we'll start with the space that is ours, the space that we've got some say about. And everything that's going to be happening here with Kianga Ellis projects is a way of dog fooding, as we say in crypto, as we say in Web3. The best way to think about a solution or decide or figure out the right design is to use the thing that you're building. So before we talk about the form and operations or structure in great detail, or before we decide that for the Rural Rapid Response Network, I'm first going to set a crypto native structure for Kianga Ellis projects. So something that we can operate in and use with the Kianga Ellis projects as a thing. And within that, that will be us getting used to the tools, seeing how things are going to evolve from a technology perspective, politically, from a regulatory perspective, all of this year. And that will solve two things that I think I wanted to do. I wanted to really take action. I didn't want to sit around and talk this idea to death. I wanted us to be able to be out in our communities, or have something that we feel is value add in the moment, because the needs are very urgent. And having just bringing in decentralized finance, the crypto economy, blockchain, those items as tools, just going ahead and centering it right now is certainly a great way to feel and be engaged in action immediately. Because without that, it's paper-based and it's physical, which is important, but then naturally, it's extremely limited. It's extremely limited when we're bootstrapping with, one person, and the limitations of physical space. So we get the best of both worlds. We get the best of both worlds. So here, I'm showing you my local paper that came out today. These are things that we will do with this project. We we read our local printed paper, and hopefully where you are, you have something. But I'm sure it's been hard for independent journalism and local journalism and papers. And so I know I'm fortunate in my area to have this kind of coverage. And so, number one for the work of the Rural Rapid Response Network is that we are engaged in our local community. We are active. We are going to our town meetings. We are becoming informed. We're showing up in person as much as possible. There's usually many options to join meetings online. We are going to our town's websites, and we are finding out, and we're staying current on all the things going on and who's doing what, who's on first. And we just want to, as a group, take it to the next level of accountability, personal accountability for our governance and for our local governments and for the conditions on the ground as we find them, because we want to be solution oriented. We're not just going to tear down, but we want to build up. And as I've been saying and been cautioning with my t-shirt, no pain, no Maine. We're in for some tough times. And it turns out that today in the Island Advantages is an article about my neighboring town of Stonington. Stonington has received millions in federal grants over the past decade. This is what you heard it here first. So this reporter was at the town meeting where I was. I saw him there. And I have mentioned this many times in this meeting, just even even just Tuesday, pointing out the $14 million in federal grants that Stonington received, and how that is a major vulnerability. And with the Rural Rapid Response Network, and of course it makes sense to be crypto native because we're following the same principles, which are avoiding single points of failure, which is figuring out new models for how we're organizing both as human capacity, how we're organizing as resources. We're valuing transparency, validation, censorship resistance. If the idea of crypto just scares you or makes you suspicious, don't be. This project is not going to be about a coin or investing. Not personal investing, not like, buy this asset and do whatever craziness with it. We are going to be talking about it as the solution for this. This is what we're doing. This is why we're here. Is because the federal, I'm going to read you some of this article because it's just so spot on. And it's really just continuing to encourage me and drive home why it's so important that I do this with Kianga Ellis projects and with the Rural Rapid Response Network. Let me just go right into this, read this a little bit for you. Stonington has received moreover, that's what it says, $12 million in federal, state, and nonprofit grant funds over the past 10 years. The money has touched almost every facet of the town, from roads and infrastructure improvement and studies on sea level rise to COVID-19 safety materials and fire fighting gear. Stonington town manager Kathleen Billings said the money has proved invaluable as the town looks to take on increasingly expensive capital projects. As progress continues on several ongoing grant-funded projects, Billings feared the Trump administration's actions in Washington could have a major impact in Stonington. That concern took center stage on February 21st, when what? In a terse exchange with Governor Janet Mills. President Donald Trump threatened to withhold federal dollars from the state over transgender athletes' participation in sports. Currently, billing said no funding has been affected. So that's an interesting way that this writer decided to put that, what happened. I have much more colorful things to say, which you could probably find on my personal X, which I'm taking a hiatus from, by the way, at FHO Money. I think I just blew a gasket at the end of last week, and over the weekend was like, I just needed to, stop tweeting. Step away from the phone, Kianga, stop tweeting. But thankfully I have the meeting channel, and so I am keeping up with Pine Tree Patriots. X is obviously vital for staying connected and getting the latest information on the things that are happening in Maine, and so I am still around. But yeah, this situation, this is just a great example of what we're facing as a state. And the political argument about it is not what we want to focus on here. We want to deal with the reality of federal funding going away. Oh, there was a second part to this that I wanted to read the end of it. Hang on. I mean, that showdown, honestly, the governor of Maine is just dangerous. I will be standing in solidarity on Saturday with Pine Tree Patriots to let everybody know that we are not going to stand by and have Maine put in the crosshairs of this ridiculous, bully, whatever the heck is going on there, whatever she's thinking or not thinking, in the way that was handled and is being handled, and the violations of federal law and how people want to play politics with that. Okay, this was part. I think it's obvious, like, why this is a problem, and I should be obvious that just not changing anything isn't the solution. I heard Representative Libby on the radio this morning saying that the Maine state budget was $7 billion before COVID, I think. So for time immemorial until 2019, up to $7 billion for a little tiny state. I guess that's a small amount. But that now we're at 12 billion. So I mean that's almost double in 5 years. And to just say that the answer is no, we're just going to keep this level of spending. We're just going to keep everything the status quo, and we're gonna destroy all the citizens and destroy all the functions of our state, challenging the federal government and all of that because of whatever reason, is not really an answer. It's not being honest about failure. It's not being honest about sustainability. So even at the same time that officials will talk about resilience, rebuilding, sustainability, I will add being anti-fragile, I don't think there's a ton of, honesty about the failure of the status quo. And folks are letting politics or their political animus, put all of our futures in jeopardy, and we can't allow that. So here in the end of this article's uncertain future, even as Billings, Nelson, and the 5-member Stonington Select Board celebrate the influx of grants, they remain uncertain how President Trump's policies will affect the town. At a recent meeting, Select Board member Evelyn Duncan likened it to standing on quicksand. It's very uncertain, Billing said. If that faucet shuts off, I'm not sure where we're going to be. According to Nelson, almost all of the current projects in Stonington are at least partially funded by federal dollars. And this is like very, very important for us to understand. If the federal government, okay, no, wait, here we go. This is critical. And this isn't just Maine, this is everywhere. I mean, this is what we saw, what New York City was facing when whatever that 20 million was, it wasn't billion, whatever that amount was that was being sent for the hotel, Roosevelt Hotel, that got canceled. The problem for New York City was that they had already spent the money and it was like a reimbursement. So this is crucial for us to understand about how our governance is structured right now between states and feds. To cut down on fraud, oh, how's that working? But sorry, to cut down on fraud, all federal grants are made as reimbursements to the grantee. If the federal government stops or significantly slows reimbursement, Nelson said the town will have to foot the bill or risk a lawsuit from the local contractor hired to do the work. I mean, can you just imagine? This is what we're facing. The dominoes. Like, we can't get so caught up in the activism and the politics and all of that pushback that needs to happen, that we don't have a team that's got the eye on this ball. Because if the federal government doesn't do the reimbursement and then the town can't pay, that contractor is in jeopardy in terms of their livelihood and their business, and the dominoes, the ripple effects, the butterfly wings that are flapping right now are very, very serious. And no, it doesn't mean that we just roll over and apologize. Oh my goodness, what happened in the legislature with Laurel Libby was an absolute shocking disgrace. To be censured and to deny her constituents a voice in voting. I mean, things have gotten way, way, way out of hand. And so we are going to stand on the mantra of no pain, no Maine, because we're going to stand for what is right, what is constitutional, what is fair. And there's a way to disagree, and there's a way to push for change, and there's a way that's just tyranny. That's just the thing that happened in that city that I grew up in. Taxation without representation, and we know how that turned out. Not well for the oppressors. I digress. So the end of this is saying we are a federalized system. Small rural communities don't have the money for these types of projects. The state doesn't even have the money for these types of projects. Federal money is important in all our communities. So despite her apprehension about incoming payments, Billings remains cautiously optimistic about the future. We've just got to keep going, be hopeful, and take the opportunities that make the most financial sense for our town. We've all got to work together, and I have no intention of giving up. Wonderful, great, and she's absolutely right. We do all have to work together, but I'll tell you, I don't think that things are as uncertain to the downside. Because where has Maine been drawing all of these federal funding from? It's in here. Things like recent legislation. The America Rescue Plan Act, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the Inflation Reduction Act. So here's the problem with that. And here's just the reality of the problem with that. That's in the crosshairs of the current administration. And there is very, very strong unity. There is a strong mandate. Some people disagree with that, but We know that things that have been inflated with the COVID response money, these things that have caused, inflamed inflation, the outcome of the past, 5, 6 years, I think we have a government that's very determined to roll that back. In addition to, of course, dramatically reducing the complexity and the size of the government, federal government, of dismantling, dismantling a lot of stuff. And so to say that it's uncertain, I think it's quite certain. In fact, we should get very, very clear and certain. We should begin to reorient ourselves around a world where our towns are not getting, our towns are not getting millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, our rural towns, from the federal government, at least not as currently allocated. Now, where we end up through this transition, it's up to us to be engaged in the process, to be on the right side of things. And that's what we can focus on here with the Rural Rapid Response Network, with our citizen adjacent action, which is, not gonna let folks file lawsuits if that's what they want to do. We are going to be about things like, well, the state doesn't have the money. The federal government is either A, pulling funds because we have politicians in this state that are going to adopt lawlessness and personal pride and whatever's going on with the Mills administration in her showdown, her attempted showdown, in the most disrespectful manner I think I've ever seen. That's only going to hurt us, who are the citizens and residents here. It behooves us to be working on a parallel plan. And the great news is that there is something we can work toward that's going to address the core need. And the core need is always finance. There isn't even the status quo that is bloated and, dare I say, corrupt and not working. I mean, many of you all, I follow you, are digging in on where has the money gone? What are the conditions of our communities? What's not working? It's still not enough. It's still not enough. So it's not the dollar amount, apparently, that is the issue. We need to restructure. We are being forced to restructure, and this is a reality that's being imposed on us from multiple angles, in terms of, the people rising up from the bottom. I would even say, from a market's perspective, the pressure that will come on our ability to keep financing all of this. In terms of our national debt, all of those things are pointing to the importance that right now there be a cohort of us who are going to roll up our sleeves and work on the ultimate solution to offer. And with this group, we will be focused on infrastructure. We are focused on infrastructure, economic development, and energy within that, and anchoring the community as a crypto or internet native organization makes a lot of sense, because the solutions ultimately are going to be about the future of finance. And even though those are kind of separate worlds, in the sense that there's a world of creators and social and community that's on the internet, and then there's this other kind of industrial world, but the industry of finance, the industry of internet finance, that is all working on the same technology stack. primarily, primarily I'll be talking about applications that run on the Ethereum blockchain. But don't worry, we're not going to get like too too in that world in terms of the meat and potatoes, because we want to stay alert and aware of what's actually happening in our communities and figuring out, what are these solutions that we want to propose or that we want to prepare for, to stand in the gap around. And this is coming to me in my mind a little sooner rather than later, the big issues. And whether we might, I don't know, just say what's the goal of the project? It's to replace the missing federal funding that's going to happen when our governor tries to sue the Trump administration. It's like, oh gosh. Or if our elected representatives approve or insist on violating the law, and we have to, some of us have got to be working on strengthening our bonds with each other, being a support in a very practical way, making sure that we're knowledgeable, the tail isn't wagging the dog. And that's maybe some of what's going on, where you've got consultants or nonprofits or this kind of expert class that's coming in and saying what needs to be done, and in fact it's not lining up with reality, or it's based on ideology that doesn't take into account unintended consequences. Offshore wind comes to mind. So we need it. This is also what citizen adjacent action can accomplish, which is if we're absent from those meetings that work, then we end up like basically where we are, which is all of these decisions that have been made, investments that have been made, and then it's all blowing up, it's not working, and we citizens have to show up and carve out time to get engaged and try to fix all of this mess. So we'll be doing that. All right. So before we get to the slides, which is happening right now, I want to just go through a few things I just shared. Hang on. I just shared on the X. On X. For your reference, you can bookmark. Okay. All right, so just to mention a couple things which you'll find posted just before this meeting. I linked the playlist of the Infrastructure Rebuilding and Resilience Commission meetings. There were 2 subcommittee meetings this week that I attended most of. They were focused on, one which was I think Monday or Tuesday, were focused on like code and what needs to be looked at around code, as in building codes. And then the meeting yesterday, another subcommittee meeting, talked a lot about like working waterfront infrastructure. And yeah, it's like drinking from a fire hose. I'm absorbing a lot from osmosis, listening to the conversations. The commission members are all very well placed within agencies and government and private industry, but all with tons of experience around the work that goes into our rebuilding or our day-to-day infrastructure needs, energy, and experience working with the federal government and the bureaucracy and all of the red tape. And they're just tremendous insights that at some point, I think in a more scientific and systematic way, when it makes sense, we can go through some of that learning together and extract where it points us in terms of the Rural Rapid Response Network. What can we learn about how to be effective as adjacent activity to everything else that's going on within the state? And there's certainly a lot that I'm hearing about what the needs are, what the challenges are, that I believe we can step into a very clear role, again, on the local, hyper-local level. So all of that's in one place for anyone who wants to go back through the meetings that they've been having since last year. And the next all commission meeting, I think, is like the 12th or 19th of March. And their final report will be due in May. And that will be great to see. So all of those are linked there. And in terms of being crypto native as a project, and I won't talk a ton about these projects right now. On Tuesday, so two days ago, we listened to a few minutes from the Farcaster team about what. Did we listen to Farcaster? Yeah, we did. We listened to a few minutes about what is the need for, what's the problem with social media. And so Farcaster is a decentralized application protocol software that is changing social media, right? Social media, social network. And it's where I am shifting some of my attention in terms of my personal social media engagement. And in the past 3 days of doing that instead of being on X, I have to tell you, it's been really fun. It's been fun, like old days fun of the dynamics are totally different, and it feels fresh, and where what I think has been called consumer crypto, but the things that are not talked about, or at least that aren't in my feed, weren't really coming across my reality on X, about what people are actually building that has utility, that's useful, it's going to be the future experience for really everyone on the internet, and combining all the things that we know now that are happening separately. So Farcaster, and using an application called Warpcast to create an account there and have an account there is something we'll be talking more about. And meanwhile, I'm spending a lot of time there trying to get up to speed on a ton of stuff that I haven't been following, to be perfectly honest. And then there's another project. There's another technology that is also built on the Ethereum blockchain called Juice Box. And it's a funding mechanism. It's a way for projects and communities to raise money, organize themselves in their community in an extremely online way, with crypto economics powering everything in a totally sort of transparent, immutable, all the qualities of a blockchain. So that's another piece in our toolkit that we will talk more about, but I think is a core, these are like 3 legs of a stool, basically. The social app, the social network, that we've got to have to work together. But and I think also when it comes to the solutions for the rural rapid network, the rural rapid response network more broadly, communication, responsiveness, emergency response, but just the day-to-day steady state of being connected locally in rural areas. We have a connectivity challenge, both from the energy situation, energy grid, and its age and its expense, which ties to messaging apps and how we're communicating with each other. And so the future of social networks is crucial for us to have as a leg of our stool. That will apply initially, obviously, with us with it who are beginning to work on this, but then in terms of who it is we're rapidly responding to, I see both. I see paper, old-fashioned paper, being crucial because of the demographics where we are and how that works. But also we were sort of got to have our feet in both. We've got to have our feet in the future, which is coming at us fast. And as well, ironically, some of these Stone Age analog paper methods could be quite powerful for us as well. And then, the juice box is a second leg of the stool, how we'll be able to coordinate, as an initial group, and then a protocol and a project called Sky Ecosystem. And, this is more going to be about the big solution for the community-wide, the town-wide, the county-wide, and at some point, even the statewide financing challenges. For that, we are going to be looking at decentralized finance, so more of a B2B, business to business market, decentralized version of the capital markets, municipal finance that our states are heavily dependent on now, between like the bond offerings and the federal government grants. That's kind of, these are sort of like the only game. These are the only tricks up our sleeve. But there's this new space of online decentralized markets and finance solutions that are, again, very nascent, very early, not yet working or adopted for what I'm talking about. What's going to replace the funds needed to rebuild infrastructure that was washed away in storms, our aging bridge here that connects where I am to the mainland. I mean, just the grid. Yeah, I mean, the list is long. The list is long and it's expensive. It's expensive. So we'll deal with that a little bit later, but that's the important third leg of the stool that we will focus on as a crypto native technology, the Sky ecosystem. And again, I will whoopsie, I almost left the studio. I just want to stop the screen. Okay. So I will I gotta take, it's not I put wood in the stove, but it's not getting warm. All right. 149. I should when we're set up in the project house with the new the new studio at Kianga Ellis Project House. It's called Bab's Bungalow, by the way. People on Instagram know this. People on Instagram. Yeah, so you can follow Kianga Ellis Projects on Instagram, which is at Kianga Ellis Projects. And you'll see the art side. You'll see the art side of what I've been up to. And I think, yeah, we'll see like how to evolve the use of social media, where different people like to hang out, and which conversations or which content makes sense on which platforms. This kind of meetings, but it's not very Instagram, right? And it's pretty dry. But it's about, this is the business. So it's good for like a Rumble or a YouTube. And yeah, X, I don't know. But X is good because, and I'll try to do this. I'll try to, yeah. I'm also figuring out with like the different devices, what things to be logged in on with the laptop and how to connect which app with the phone and da 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 da. So I think what I need to add to this setup is to put, I don't know if I can do streaming software from mobile. So I don't know. Do any of you know this? Any of you pro live streamers? If this kind of multi-channel broadcast is something that works on the phone. I don't know. I'll research it. But I know what I can do is add at Kianga Ellis, add this account on X to my phone so that I can live stream the gathering at the State House on Saturday, where I'm hoping to be. And so that hopefully, if you're on X and you're following on X, you'll be able to see that real time. It won't be connected in the first instance, I don't think, also on the other live stream channels. But at least, so things are fractured, which is also part of what Farcaster is solving for. This exact thing that I'm sitting here trying to work out, like, we're all spread out all of these places. But we'll just, what I was saying is music. I was saying is music, and I don't know if I'm going to bother with it in the next couple of weeks, but when I do set up the studio at the project house, that's maybe something that I can add. A little like music interludes, or when I'm shifting gears, play a little song, or when I'm cold and I need to warm up, then I would do that. Okay. We are now going to get into the slides. How about that? We are going to get into the slides. Okay. All right, how does that look? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Pardon me, I'm just gonna blow my nose. Bear with me, please. Okay. So for the next hour, maybe less, I'm going to do some writing with you guys, hanging out with me. The meat the meat that needs to be on the bones. Where is it? How do I get back there? Yep. Okay. So ELI 5, explain it to me like I'm 5 years old. Tuesday, I changed this. I mean, we have two things going on. We have Kianga Ellis projects and the number 25, which specifically within the constellation of Kianga Ellis projects, 25 is the number that designates the Rural Rapid Response Network as a project, both because it's the year 2025, but also because it's a 25-year ambition that we're looking at. Where do we want to be in the year 2050? So the other Kianga Ellis projects are like Kianga Ellis project number 1, which stands for the first project in Santa Fe, New Mexico in 2011, and they otherwise correspond to the different towns where I've done projects. So, but 25, KEP25 is specifically designated for the Rural Rapid Response Network. And what I think is going to make sense for us as an organizing structure is to go ahead and put some structure around Kianga Ellis projects. Up until this point, it's never been anything other than a brand. It wasn't a separate legal entity or anything like that. It was just, a name. But I believe that it'll be very useful to create an organization for Kianga Ellis projects. We can use some of the tools, we can use some of the crypto native concepts and primitives, and that through operating Kianga Ellis projects as a project, that's going to prepare us to evolve what Rural Rapid Response Network should be, how people who may benefit from the network or participate in the network, how we can train, educate others to adopt tools that will be purpose-built for their needs. And I think that will be both. If we find out as a group that anything to do with crypto technology, blockchain, we're confident that it is useful and something good for people to get involved in, then we'll be educated about the latest to recommend and support our communities in adopting. I should just also say that the industry is still very nascent, very emerging. We don't yet have a proper current updated regulatory framework here in the United States for all of this activity, and that is necessary and should be happening very soon this year with this administration. But while we want to anticipate where we think things will go, or what we think will be possible, we also don't want to really pull the trigger until we see what those final laws are going to be. And I think we want to watch the industry. I want to watch the industry unfold over the next year. And so it makes sense to, kind of have an architecture that works at the Kianga Ellis projects level and kind of incubate what we think could be useful for the Rural Rapid Response Network itself. So this bullet point still makes sense for Kianga Ellis projects. I'm going to put a bracket around Maine based because, we're going to get the benefit of a network state, which basically is like a nation that's borderless, a nation that is made out of like-minded people who hang out on the internet. And so from that perspective of using the internet where we can connect through time and space, it doesn't matter where we are, we can be together. Keonga Projects as an organization is based everywhere and nowhere. And I think there'll be people who may want to support our work, may want to support what we're doing, even right here in the Blue Hill Peninsula area, because we're going to be piloting something extremely new, extremely advanced, extremely sci-fi and high tech. And we will need the support of people who are not physically here. I mean, we have 2,000, we have like 2,000 people in my town. So we definitely are going to need support from outside of where I am geographically. And so being an internet native organization will really help us do that. So I'm not sure at this stage where it makes sense to say Maine based. Also, from a entity standpoint, I'm looking at Keonga Projects being an unincorporated association. And that still would allow us to register as a social welfare organization for the purposes of our tax structure here in the US, which is a kind of nonprofit organization, although donations are not tax deductible. It will allow us to do some political activism. I think as long as we're not like funding or campaigning for specific candidates. So I think that's going to make sense for Keonga Projects. And that's something that, we can put into action right away. It's something that I've already started working on. And yeah, so this is fine for now. The purpose, I'm not going to worry too much about the wording, but let's just like get the substance out that we'll be developing and operating the rural response network. Citizen adjacent action, being a good neighbor, notice someone in need, show compassion, pick up a proximate person who is down, provide shelter, administer healing. These were some notes from our session when we looked at the Bible story of the Good Samaritan. And that was a great journey into ancient wisdom to kind of ground some of the values that we want to have with this project and how we interact with the people in our communities. So I'll just leave that for now. So this note, I have this idea about publishing a paper broadsheet for local circulation to provide people with alternative editorials about local and national politics. I think maybe the word I want here is balanced. Because I feel this is a problem specifically because, in my view, a lot of folks don't the truth is, like, obscured. The reality of what we're facing is obscured because the opinions, the publications that are available, what I'm reading in terms of opinion, are not talking about some of the hard facts, the information. So it's not even about an alternative opinion piece. It's more of providing, I think, what we could maybe be a part of adding to the conversation in terms of local news, are some of the different perspectives and different kinds of information that point our neighbors into another direction, like an area that they wouldn't be looking. Um, for example, I'm just thinking of things that I've heard in some of the local meetings that I found particularly alarming. And it's often not that it's surprising what you hear someone say this, get into these details, but in your busyness of your life, you're not really connecting the dots or mentally doing the chess moves to think of the ultimate conclusions. But the demographics issue, for example, or problem, when it comes to a rapid response, like emergency response, like the ambulance services, or the physical capabilities of citizens who are of a particular age, who will be able to physically respond, say in an emergency, to rescue someone or lift them, uh, and just that we don't have this capacity issue is at a critical, terrifying level. And so these are the kinds of things that I'm hearing at the local towns meeting. I don't necessarily see surfaced in a way in local publications that draw people in to, okay, we can get all in our feelings about what we don't like about the administration or our views about cultural issues, but more balanced editorial, more balanced discussion, not just about breaking news or current events news, but just evaluating the situation on the ground. So, anywho, as far as that goes, it just stood out to me as a number one thing that, as we'll get to in some of the other bullet points, with the limitation of time, resource, geography, what are these things that we can do from day one that will be meaningful and that will immediately add value along the lines of what we hope to contribute with the Rural Rapid Response Network. And so, number one, in a way, when it comes to our capacity to respond, providing the information that raises the game for everyone around us. Does that make sense? So it's sort of like, if I have to come to your house to pick you up, it's maybe good if you know that I have the capacity to come to your house and pick you up if you are in need. And so education and communication is gotta be just at the very, very top of everything that we do. Now what we communicate about, what we educate about, we have to figure that out, and that's gonna be a huge effort, but just identifying, communication, and I'm bullet pointing here, engaging from a perspective of editorials, and this could start with actually writing letters to our local papers and maybe we publish, at some point also then, publish a broadsheet that can be, for example, if we're able to pull off the exhibition for this summer at the Cowgirls Project House here, that's something we can just have here. So, the benefit of having a space is we don't have we can hope that others will maybe also let us put our broadsheet there. Maybe we'll be able to put it at the post office or coffee shops or what have you. But even if not, if there's an art exhibition that people are going to come to at Bab's Bungalow, then that's a good target for us to have our broadsheet that's going to give a very balanced picture of what we're facing as a state as it pertains to some of the more salacious headlines, but bringing it back to the stuff that's really doesn't get a lot of clicks, the boring stuff, but it's with that balanced information that I think we can see more people want to join in on being constructive and to accept or be open about new approaches to take the reset, the dismantling, the demolition, the reimagining of government functioning, federal and state. If we can grow the coalition of folks who are willing to work with the idea that we need radical change, and how can we be cooperative with it and constructive with it, and within that cooperation, of course, then hold the line or advocate for or build the case. I mean, that's also the thing, right? It's like, what are the arguments that support one's point of view? So this is important. We can be focused as people who are going to our town meetings, as people who are spending time researching, thinking, attending, again, reading the research reports. I mean, we're doing the extra work. Then we can also put arguments behind why we think certain policy outcomes or restructurings are appropriate or can work, or if we think they can't work, we have a reason why. And then not only will we have a reason why something can't work, we will also then be armed to say, okay, here's an alternative. So we're not just for tearing down and what doesn't work. We have to be prepared with here's what we're proposing to replace that, and here's our research, here's our argument, here are the test cases, or here are the pilot programs. So this project in my mind is like got to take all of that on our shoulders, because because no one's going to do it for us. Right? I mean, no one's going to do it for us. No one's going to come in and say, okay, Maine, here's how you can operate in this new environment where the states are really going to compete with one another, where we're going to remove this bloated, non-functioning bureaucracy that's just crushing your growth, that's crushing your, fill in the blank. Are we as Mainers prepared to lead in that new dynamic? I don't, probably not. That's something. All of the states. I mean, what's being proposed at the America First level is not like anything any of us have ever imagined would probably happen in our lifetime. Or what does it look like to be back in like a post World War II moment, or a post Civil War moment? That's like what time it is, and we've got to go way beyond protests. We've got to go way beyond lawsuits to stop this or whatever. we've got to go right on ahead. We've got to skip ahead and begin to present. Here's how it works differently. And if we do that hard work, then yeah, I think that's how we keep winning. So much winning. Did I see that the WHO is going to collapse? We won't be able to operate. Oh, too bad. So sad. So we are going to be the people. We are going to be the crew that is preparing for what comes next. And yeah, I'm beating this point to death, but I think that this writing piece, and particularly that it's on paper. There's a whole thing that's happening on social media. Uh, but I think, those of you who are here in Maine, and if you're like into this stuff already, you know that our demographics are older, and a lot of stuff is not, people are not online, or they're not, I don't know. I'm still learning. But I think that a lot of eyeballs, particularly where I am, are definitely seeing things that are on these local papers, which have internet, which have an internet, have an internet version as well. But all right, enough on that. So I just put one bullet point there. Write letters to the editor of local papers. Sort of focused. Oops. Focused on data, information, and compelling reasons to be open to change and or doing things differently. Yeah? Okay. I won't spend more time on that. And publishing our own printed resources. And then, of course, as we actually, as a network, have sort of services that we offer people, then that comes together, right? Yeah. Okay. Flesh out. Who are we rapidly responding to? It's cold. It's cold. What can I write here? Here, individuals and families within a, I'll just say 60-mile radius of each project. I started to want to say station, each station. I think that might be too. because I'm thinking about maybe a 45-minute drive, no more than an hour drive. And so that's probably, all right, we'll just keep 60 miles. And so we have station number 1, Deer Isle. This is very remote. This is very remote. But again, it's been important for me to want to do something that is very tangible, that is going to affect people's lives. And what can we do with what we have? So it has to start somewhere. So this is my contribution. And hopefully, it's a model, and it's a way to figure out a design that can be easily adopted and replicated other places. So on the one hand, this is incredibly concrete of the who we're rapidly responding to. It's not the total vision, but it's like, well, who can be touched for real today with the people who are working on KEP25 right now, which is me. And so that's why it's going to have to be this. So as we grow, as we get members, because by becoming an unincorporated association, a C4, we will have membership. And yeah, so that will just create kind of belonging, create an actual cohort of people, and we can begin to explore, whoever may have a space, or what those criteria will be to actually be a station, a node. I'm gonna slash this for now. A node, a project house, because I think to keep all those words together will just improve the legibility. And also, it's nice because it's both. It's old world, it's analog, a network, a station like a railroad. It's the exact same picture that we are going to have with our internet nativity as we're designing everything about this around what blockchain and what some of the protocol developments have been, as we use that as our architecture, as we use that to overlay. We overlay I don't know which is overlaid which, it's sort of maybe both. We are wrapping what we do physically, we're wrapping it in this future state of the internet, or maybe we're curating, we're bending the potential future state of the internet around the physical reality that we are existing in. And that's the big difference right now with this project than what I've worked on in the past, where we were just online and we were just building online community, with aspirations of being relevant in the real world. But yeah, didn't have that piece. I'll speak for myself, didn't have that piece in a very specific way. So this is the exact opposite, because it's just very specific. It's here, Deer Isle, Maine. And Well, I'll just put Downeast for now. It just is a little bit broader. In the Catskill Mountains, where we have Summit House. Again, you can see a little bit of this if you go to the Instagram at Kianka Ellis Projects. And I'm putting that as Station X because, you know, we are really based in Maine, this effort, and the view is statewide. We're looking at the problems in the state of Maine. We're looking at the policies in the state of Maine, and I will be attending the hyper-local focus will be where I am in Maine. But given, you know, my background and my origin story, Massachusetts and New York State are very, very important to me and still very connected in my life. And so that's going to be part of this from day one as well. So where we have Station 1, like the origin station, is here in Maine, I will put Station X being like the terminus, the endpoint of what eventually would be this regional network that's both physical buildings that house and support our operations. And then, of course, we are going to be internet native as well. So this piece is important that we're saying front and center of what we do are going to be impacting the lives of the people right where we are. And let's see. Then on the other end of the spectrum, I want to say something about, you know, the municipal financing needs. Because that will be kind of some of the brain damage to do on the third leg of the stool that I mentioned, decentralized finance, the sky ecosystem, ways that we can replace the municipal or county level funding that we have currently. That's not enough, but that, you know, is going away. Maybe it'll be replaced in another form at some point. We just don't know the trajectory of any of that. And yeah, look, maybe I'm being too much of a doomer. Maybe this pause is just that, and it's going to be brief. And yeah, look, but then I think about 2 trillion in budget cuts, and I think about entire agencies going away, and I don't know. I think we have to just step on the gas as much as possible. So who we're responding to? Okay, the individuals and the families. I do want to put, oopsie, I do want to put, so we'll put that there, and then you think I would have figured out PowerPoint buttons by now. Town. We'll do town and county. We won't even do state, but we'll say town and county, municipal. Who are we rapidly responding to? I'm just going to say town. I'm going to say town. Town. Town budget. requirements. That is very clunky, but I think about, and I've been saying this for years. I've been saying this for so many years that I am just, I am still saying it, which is I look at the amounts of money that are raised, that are lost, that are burnt in this crazy world of cryptocurrencies. And then I look at what our towns need to fix our bridges, to keep our roads from collapsing, to restore our emergency services. And it just is heartbreaking because it's like, oh, we need $10,000 for this, or we need $100,000 for this. Now, of course, there's like the millions and millions, but there are these people who are YOLOing, just tossing in multi-millions of dollars, chasing and willing to lose it. The things that happened with the president of Argentina the other week, with the Trump and Melania coins, for the people who are playing those games, it's just heartbreaking to see. That's real money. I mean, it may be tied up in cartoon JPEGs or from the NFT craze to what we're seeing with meme coins, but that's like real money. That's real value, and so that's real utility, and that's something to take seriously, and that's something to say, well, is it possible? It's got to be possible. We can harness that for the benefit of where we live and for the things that really sustain us. So I have been singing that song for like 5 years, and I will keep singing it. And that's what I hope we can demonstrate. I mean, what if we could demonstrate as an online community? So as part of Kianga's projects, we're looking to support with new finance, internet finance, the needs of ourselves, our families, our communities, our towns, our counties, our states. Yeah, what if we could step up and just say, oh, here, you needed $100,000 to fill in the blank. Here, boop. The town is going to have to, I don't know, shutter the nursing home or fire these teachers or, all of the terrible things that we're facing. What if it's possible that this new frontier of finance really can, so it's not necessarily the analogy that I used the other day, Tuesday, the blockage of the arteries. I was talking about money and finances, a circulatory system where it's not just like more money. So it's not just like more blood trying to come through a blood vessel. If that vessel is blocked, it's not going to solve your problem. You've got to remove the blockage. Well, maybe in this scenario, that's a separate challenge. And what we want to be doing is building a whole new artery. We want to be building a new artery, maybe with like synthetic blood. It's going to do the same thing. It's going to keep the patient alive and healthy. And that's, what we'll be part of doing with this Rural Rapid Response Network, and why we have to talk about it in terms of 25 years. We got to start today talking about something that I hope it doesn't take that long. I really do. But yeah, when I think about the past, yes, like I said, 8 or 9 years, we've come so far, but also not. and the magnitude of what is possible and what's being built and what can be achieved here and what's required, yeah, really, it really is appropriate that it's taking the amount of time that it's taking. So this part of the project is not ever going to be about the perfect thing that's going to wave a magic wand and be, awesome and from day one. But I am getting a spidey sense that, yeah, in a year, within this year, some major leaps forward, particularly once we get the regulation. But there may be some small things we can start to actually do, that we can propose something very specific and not just the kind of conceptual, oh, here are these new ways to finance these things. So we'll keep that in there. These bullets probably should be reversed because the individuals and the people, that's a more, that's a peer-to-peer scale, that's a person-to-person scale thing. And we can right away raise money to support people with their needs, with their emergency needs or some scope of that. We can raise money to provide capacity for others who would have the time, or who have the time, and if they could get paid, would help us in all of these things that we want to be able to do that's adjacent to the official work and the official responses. So those two things, the who are the individuals and families that are proximate within our physical location. So someone in a car can actually get there in a reasonable amount of time within a same day trip to meet a need. And yeah, we also want to from day one be thinking about being able to rapidly respond at a municipal level. So as we go into this further into this year, if there's not going to be a smooth transition through this, if our governor decides that she's really, really going to risk it all, and she's wrong, which I believe she's wrong. She's wrong on the law. She's wrong in many respects. And we suffer the consequences of that, which would be definitely losing federal funding in certain areas. Let's be ready. Let's do the work to try to be ready to rapidly respond on that. So that's big. Okay. All right, I'm gonna just take a little drink and blow my nose again. Pardon me. All right. If the network starts with one, here I'll say with one active project house station node project house, what are the operations we can do within that geographic limitation? Okay. Well, we can have IRL meetings. We can distribute printed material and information. What are the other operations? What are the other operations? Operations of the Rural Rapid Response Network. Yeah, education, I guess. I'm going to think of a term like cryptoeconomic. Education. So what I envision for us is that at the KEP5, at the KEP25, at the Keonk-Ellis projects level, we are, I hate the term onboarding, but we're going to be educating people and helping them with the tools, right? And I that's going to be very that's going to be very hands-on. That's going to be very hands-on. Actually showing people, and again, I don't have the right props up here. I'll do that another time. But educating people about what the blockchain is, what a wallet is, and I'm kind of reversing myself, as I've been saying, I don't want to be involved in onboarding people, but I think what we would be focused on is really people should understand what this stuff is. Yeah, I'm not. I don't think I still am very sanguine about saying that investing in it, buying cryptocurrency, is something that I want to be telling people to do. You all are just going to see me struggle with it. Is that okay? Can I just be honest? Can I just share the inner conflict around that? In any case, if done the right way, yeah, I still wholeheartedly see that this is an opportunity, especially in rural America, around leveling up for financial services. Again, it's a pen. It's neutral. It's a technology. It is a bank. It is banking like we've never had it before, and so I don't want to let what I'm concerned about in terms of people's financial harm really turn me off from the tooling that I really do think at least so that folks can know what it's all about. So at least you can evaluate it from a standpoint of knowledge as opposed to making a decision based on what this or that influencer is saying. So I think that would be our approach when it comes to education, and that if we are going to operate, which I'm saying we are going to operate through blockchain native infrastructure, let's provide people with the parts of it that aren't free, right? So what I'm thinking is at the KEP level, we have funding to grant, to give to people to experiment with and learn these tools. So, the way that it works, the way the blockchain works is you usually have to have some cryptocurrency to operate the apps because they require require gas. Basically, there is an economy that's built in. So you can download certain software that's open source and for free, but without some injection of like, fiat money, government money, you can't get very far. You can't actually use anything. So what I think is going to be a values aligned way that we can promote the experimentation and the use of these tools among the general public on a peer-to-peer basis, separate and apart from what we might propose as a more advanced capital markets solution at the municipal level. But for purposes of our Rural Rapid Response Network, which is a citizen adjacent action, which is citizens connecting with citizens and us rapidly responding as a group to the needs of our immediate local area, it's going to be, the unlock is going to be having as many people connected to the network as possible. And these are the tools for that. So at the Kianga-Ellis Projects level, we should talk about a budget that will fund this education, this adoption effort, so that and this is what we can be doing at the project house and other places, we can travel this. The Bambi Mobile. We could take the Bambi. There's this thing called KEP, which you can see also on Instagram. We could take the Bambi Mobile all around. So that's something else Kianga-Ellis projects can contribute to Rural Rapid Response Network, is we have the project houses, but we're focused on Maine, and we can take the Bambi around to the further parts of the state, northwest. It's so spread out. This is part of our big challenge. But we can take the Bambi Mobile and we can meet with people face to face to talk about why we think, or why we want to connect. We want to link up through one of these blockchain-based applications. So in addition to using X, which I think is going to continue to be important for information, and certainly for people who want to do the other work of political activism, but our network and providing the service is going to require connectivity, and this is something that we can do within our operations as we are going to start to build out that connectivity manually, with inviting people. Maybe they're coming to see the art show, or some other reason we can invite people to gather. We can take the Bambi to where people are and set up and do demos and help folks download a software to their phones, explain what it's all about, talk about safety, security, and use funding from Kianga-Ellis projects to give to people the cryptocurrency that they need to play around and be engaged, to learn and know how to use, not to invest or gamble, but to use these tools for the purposes of being a network and providing the service, receiving the benefits of the service, etc. Yeah. Okay. We've got 10 more minutes. Bambi, that's confusing. Bambi being an Airstream RV, by the way, in case that's not clear. Bambi RV tour. Yeah, okay. What are the other? We've got quite other slides. Within the limits of geography, time, and finance, what can we do that is valuable from day one, effective and useful rapid response for some critical function or need in the immediate local community? I think that initially, in my mind, beyond these things we just talked about, I'm not sure we're ready to figure this one out. I think that when we do the work of IRL meetings, of distributing information, communication, education, and we gather a community that's local to each of the efforts, starting here in the Blue Hill Peninsula area down east. Then once we've gotten into that, we'll begin to think and know and find out what we can respond to, right? Because so far I've talked about things that we can actually do, things we can operate with. I mean, one obvious thing we can respond to is money, which we have to first obtain. Like, we'd have to raise money. But then we could, that's something very easy that we can do within the limits of geography, time, and whatever money we could raise, is that we don't really have any physical constraints. I mean, it doesn't take like 10 people. It doesn't take labor, physical labor per se, to respond to a request for money. If you have the funding. Oh, my stove just did not. I think the fire went out. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap up in like 5 minutes and fix that situation. Provide grant funding. Yeah. I think we have to do the things, we have to raise the money in order to give it away, but that's something we can easily do without any kind of physical infrastructure, without staffing. If we can raise some money, then we can give it away. And I think that's a pretty valuable thing to do day one. Yeah, I think so. Okay, who needs to benefit? What are the priority of needs within our power to address? I feel like I've talked through. I think that's, I won't, with the time we have left, I won't write out any bullets on that, but I think that's been described in terms of the who needs to benefit. And I think that's, well, here, let me put this, because I think it's also our towns, individuals and families. I mean, just to have something. Priority of needs, information, funding. We can raise money and we can give it away. That's in our power. We can gather information, we can sort it, and we can provide that, right? I mean, when you get into things in terms of rapid response, you get to things where someone's like, my basement's flooded. We're not going to have the capacity to deal with that initially. Okay, we'll save that for next meeting. We'll talk about 12 to 24 months, the capacities, yeah, things like the stations would have emergency supplies all the time, for example. So there might be like an art show, and then if you need a solar powered radio or flashlight, we have both. We have both. And that's maybe another thing in terms of information. I won't put in the bullet point now, but we could be experts on prepping and being that touch point for people in our towns to assess their readiness for a variety of scenarios within their just day-to-day planning. But then also, as I think about the things I'm hearing in the commission meetings, there's all kinds of assessments people could be doing and should be doing around their homes and their businesses to be more resilient or prepared, et cetera. So we could maybe be a resource to provide that kind of training or coordination, or be a conduit to both sides, both those who are the planners and the organizers of that kind of thing, getting that information to communities, or communities feeding that information back to those who are the planners. And then what are the now capacities we can identify that we would build expertise, understanding, and muscle for those medium-term capacities? Okay. So that's where we are. We'll continue Tuesday. So I'm going to be moving around quite a bit in the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye out on the X. For now, they're the best place to get the latest news and sharing, other than the live streams, is on X at Kianga Ellis. And I'll just keep you all posted as we go about the meetings, and if there's going to be any changes. Okay. All right. Bye-bye.